Hello and welcome to Conference Showcase. I'm your host, Gary Leland. Now, if you found our show on Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, any other video sharing site, please check out my website at conferenceshowcase.com. Now, that's the place to find all the videos that I'm going to record and edit and put up from all the conferences that I'm going to attend. And if you like this show, I ask that you please tell your friends about it. You may also think about subscribing on YouTube if you really enjoy it a lot, okay? Now, in this episode, I'm going to bring you another session from the Dallas-Fort Worth WordPress Meetup group. If you're not familiar with this meetup group, you really need to check out their website, and it's located at meetup.com/DFW Wordpress. On this episode, I'm bringing you a session with Brian Sullivan titled Top 10 Usability Guidelines Every Blogger Should Know. And this is a great session, okay? So let's watch it now.
Thanks, Jay. My large ego takes you. One of the things, Tony, I want to thank you first off for allowing me to come, and thank all of you for actually coming out on a Saturday, especially in an afternoon like this. I know everyone has busy schedules, but I do believe that we are better together. Tony has invited me to be one of the speakers at the Emerging Tech Conference, so if you haven't got your tickets, get them now, because that will sell out too. Today, what I want to talk about is the top 10 usability guidelines for blogging. I got into blogging really through the Big Design Conference site about 5 years ago, and we did move over to the Copyblogger platform just last month. So that's been great. That was very smooth. Highly recommend working with Derek. That was fantastic. So let's see if we can get this thing going. So again, my name's Brian Sullivan. At Big Design, at Brian K. Sullivan on Twitter. And then if you're going to do any pictures or tweet during this, let's just use hashtag UXblog. I work in a lab at Sabre. We have 3 state-of-the-art labs. We have 5 analysts now. We hired 2 people. And we test about 90 projects a year. Usability is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. What we do in usability is we try to determine how easy something is to use, how easy it is to learn. We're primarily concerned with how people think and act and behave when they are on your sites or using your apps. I also run the Big Design Conference. Who likes the nerd boot? It runs October 17th through the 20th. It is at the Crowne Plaza in Addison. We are teaming up with the Industry Giants group. Just to give you some insight into our keynote speakers. Whoops. Nathan Shedroff, he's written 4 books. The one that is the best one is actually this one that is on the far right. It's called Make It So. And that's what designers can learn from sci-fi films. He spent about 3 years writing this book with another person. It's a kick-ass book. And yes, I'm a sailor too, Jay. Todd Zaki-Warfel, he's written a couple of books. He's really into prototyping and doing guerrilla user research. As a blogger, I think that he's very interesting to you guys. He gives a bunch of low-cost methods and tools that you can apply in your own daily work. And most of these tools are very cheap, 40, 50, 60 bucks. He's our closer on Friday. Chris Fowler has worked on basically every Pixar film for the last decade. He gave a really good talk at last year's Industry Giants. I attended that. I was blown away by his talk. And he actually has graciously accepted to come in and be our Saturday speaker. Our closer, as Jay had said, is Brandon Oldenburg. He's an Oscar winner, Best Animated Short last year. If you happened to see the Oscar show last year, this was the moment. This was the moment. They were shocked. This was their first animated film. It came out of Moonbot Studios. Ironically, one of the things that happened when we were doing the Design Like Da Vinci talk, they kickstarted the game, and the game is called The Golem, and that's where the forces of Caesar Borgia are trying to attack the city of Prague, and they're using the inventions from Leonardo da Vinci, so it was really some good karma going there. But Brandon's a great guy. Moonbot Studios, wonderful, wonderful studio, and they won the Oscar first time out of the gate. So it's going to be wonderful to hear him talk. Some other speakers that are really good. Stephen Anderson, you guys might know him. Sharon Rush does accessibility work, so people who are deaf and blind, how do they interact on websites? Wonderful lady. Eric Swain, I think you guys know him from Golan Harris. He's a local guy. Trying to talk AJ and Jay into doing something, but I may have to twist an arm. And then if you want to talk, step up to the mic. Submissions open April 1st. No fool. No fooling on April Fool's Day. So if you want to be the next big design idol, get ready. We want to hear from you. All right. So what is usability? We all probably think that we have a good idea as to what that means. Let me describe to you 3 different definitions of it. So the first one is from Jacob Nielsen. He's a very famous author. He's considered to be the father of usability. He says it's really about how easy your site, app, or blog is to learn and use by your customers. Okay? That's key. Jared Spool, he's been a keynote speaker at Big Design for a number of years. It's really about finding information. Okay? It's very task-based. For me, I think it's a little bit of there's business goals that you have, and then there are your customer goals. And if you can match those, that's when you get usability magic happening. Now, I know a lot of you will probably take a bunch of notes today. I'm going to make sure that Tony has access to this, and he can put it as a file that you guys can download. All right, this is the 5 planes of user experience. This is something that you guys really need to know. If you're designing or developing any type of website or blog, you will go through all 5 planes. This is from a gentleman by the name of Jesse James Garrett. We start at the bottom. That's the strategy plane. That's the most abstract thing that you do. What am I trying to do? Once you get a good handle on what you're trying to do, you then move up to the next level. You scope it out. Once you scope it out, then you need to start to apply a structure around it. So categories, pages, tags, stuff like that. Then you start to develop a skeleton. You're more interested in content and things of that nature. And then eventually it's the visual design of it, or the surface layer. Now, the great thing about blogging now is that a lot of these things just naturally get taken care of because you've got plugins and you've got themes, right? So you don't have to worry about all of these stages. But I do want to get a little bit granular as to what can happen in each stage. All right, so let's start with strategy. And I'm going to go a little bit different here. We're going to think about you're wanting to paint something. So you're a painter, right? So your goals might be to get money from a patron, maybe impress other artists. The users are going to be your patron, the other artists, people that might view your piece of art. And then what's the context? You want it to be in a private gallery, maybe even some public shows and stuff like that. So we have a pretty good strategy now, right? So it's really about user needs. All right, let's go up to the next layer though. Scoping. What the hell are we going to paint? Right, so we have our context, our usages. Well here, let's do a woman. Maybe we do a woman. Let's make her an attractive woman, dark hair, maybe have an interesting smile, right? So what am I going for? Underneath it, I'm going to have a little sketch, right? This is my wireframe, right? So this is how the user is actually going to start to interact with this, and you can kind of see that this is kind of the initial point to where it makes a little bit of sense, but it's still not refined. We're going to add a little bit of color, maybe just have some more information, add a little bit to the background so it kind of fleshes out the user, but then we got to get real granular to create our masterpiece, and that's at the surface layer. One of the interesting things about this, just to accent the cleavage, sorry guys, is the striations that are right there. When Da Vinci did this, he actually painted a certain way to accentuate that. He also did some interesting things around the smile. We don't know if it's a smile or if it's shading. And he did that on purpose. Okay. Wanted to make it interesting. This is also the patron's daughter. So he's really trying to butter up his patron. But anyway, that's how you can go through all 5 planes. As an artist, as a blogger, as a web designer, anybody goes through all 5 planes. Good blogs require thinking, right? And that's really all I'm saying here. Who's heard of this guy? Jacob Nielsen. Great. Awesome. All right, I'm being filmed, so I'm going to be nice to Jacob today. He doesn't always say or do things that I agree with, but these things I do agree with. Now, as I think any good usability engineer has to do, if we're going to talk about guidelines, usability guidelines, we're going to go over these 10. Okay, and you can go to Google and get an example of these, but I want to go through a real quick overview with you so you get a good handle on them. Then I'm going to do a subset totally based on blogging, okay? So Jacob talks about feedback, where am I at in the system? He talks about a metaphor, that's matching something from the real world onto the online world. The best example of that is a shopping cart. The shopping cart doesn't really exist online, but we have it exist in the real world. We know we put stuff into our shopping cart and we go through a checkout process. So that's what we mean by a metaphor. Navigation, do I have the flexibility to move around within the system once I get there? Consistency, as I go from page to page, does it look the same? That's important. Prevention, so rather than have error messages occur, there are certain things that you can do to prevent errors. Memory, recognition rather than recall, I'll get to that in a moment. Effort, how hard is it to get to the information that I want? Design is really about the visual appeal. The great thing that you have with blogging now is you have all of these themes. That helps you out. Once you have an error, is it easy to recover from that? And then help. And what I'll say with help, the subset here is just to be helpful. So numbered steps, for example, is a way you can provide help. Having an FAQ is a way to provide help. So here's feedback, and you can see here that we have a bar that's going across. We have some feedback that your password has been accepted. We see that we have a strong authentication there. Totally great examples of feedback. Metaphor here, the metaphor that you see here on the right, you see a little icon. So the music icon matches music. We see the movie strip matches movie. That's just taking something out of the real world to kind of make it so that people understand it a little bit easier. This also mimics the shopping cart, and it also, with swiping, mimics the reading, right? So gestural things that you can do. Navigation, again, you're just able to quickly move through this site with the tabs that are on the top. And again, there's common patterns that people can follow. One of the common patterns is to have categories on the left, tabs on the top. That's a very common pattern. Consistency, again, you can see here that we have the numbers that are very consistent. We have some icons that are available. One of these is Excel, one is Word. Which is which? At a glance, you can't really tell, but it is very consistent. So people will always talk about how Microsoft is not the best thing, but they're pretty consistent here. They could be consistently bad, but they can also be consistent. Here you see that update is in gray. It's grayed out. So you have to enter in information before you actually can do something. That's error prevention. Submit and cancel. This actually comes from a book by the name of Luke Wroblewski, who's the author, Good Form or Web Form Design. I'm going to talk about that book a little bit later because there is one thing that pisses me off more than anything. It is bad web forms. That should be simple. We should just get that, and we don't. If you don't do anything from what you've learned today, read that book by Luke W. It's a great book. Memory principle. Here, I think what I'm going to do is, can you guys tell me why this is really good design here? All I'm doing is picking a font.
It's showing you the font.
It's showing you the font. Awesome. Right. All right. Now, pop quiz. What is on the head side of a penny? Okay, Lincoln, I heard that. What else? Okay, Lincoln's head. We've got Lincoln. Lincoln's cool. What else do we have?
Date.
The date. What else?
In God we trust.
God we trust. What else?
Sign where it was minted.
Sign of where it's meant to. Maybe. That's not quite.
Name.
Its name, no.
The color.
No. Color, yes. Word liberty. Why is the word liberty there? Lincoln freed the slaves, right? Okay, that is really about what's called recall. You force a mental load on someone, right? Now, how many different ways can we identify these pennies? There's dimes, there's other things. What else? Color.
Size.
Year.
Lincoln
Yeah.
month. Size.
Lincoln. Yeah. What else?
Size.
Size. Weight. Style.
Color.
Color. Awesome. All of that stuff is recognition. Okay? This is recall. I force a mental load on you. Recognition is you just see it, you automatically know. The key thing here is recognition is easier than recall. Okay? So as you're designing your sites, make it very obvious so that people recognize your content. Okay? Don't force a recall. Don't hide your stuff. Right? Make it very apparent. Okay? This is efficiency. There's just shortcuts. We probably all use these different types of shortcuts. They're accelerator keys. This is a dangerous one on Black Friday. Right? Who's ever accidentally bought more stuff than they wanted to? Yeah. The one-click stuff is killer. Clean design, you guys kind of know about that. Who knows the name of this monkey? You guys know the name of this monkey? Hey, what's the site? MailChimp, awesome. What's the name of the chimp? No, it's not MailChimp.
Jimbo.
Freddie Chimpenheimer IV. Okay. Google Design Persona and MailChimp. Okay. Your site should have a tone. It should speak a language to the other person. If you haven't developed a design persona for your site, you're not having a conversation with them. You are telling people stuff. The great thing about the Freddie Chimpenheimer IV persona template is take the template and it will establish a tone for your site. Okay? That's a fantastic resource for you. Okay? MailChimp actually, as you go from page to page, they change the tone of their site. They are extremely helpful when you're on one of the pages where there's a problem, right? If somebody unsubscribes from your list, one of the things that they say in the email that comes back is somebody is unsubscribed from your list, but we still love you. Right? And that is by design because their Chimpenheimer IV has a tone. Their site has a tone. You don't learn anything today, create a tone for your site. That is also one of your design principles. Make it easy to recover from errors, and I think some of the stuff is built in to WordPress, some of it's not, but this is just plain rude with the error messaging here. In a couple of ways, we have black on red, so that's actually hard to see. It kind of floats, but you know, I don't know, it's just rude. This is even ruder. They step on it. They blame the user. Right. So some developer was probably drunk when they decided to do this. Not funny though, because you're going to lose customers because you're insulting them. Again, be helpful. I think that's the best thing to do. So numbered steps, stuff like that, would help people. Have an FAQ that's readily available. Have that tone that I was talking about, right? If you have chat, email, have contact information, that way again you're helpful, right? If you have a physical address or a phone number, you are the most helpful for someone. And if you have it on every page, wow, you're really helpful. These are Nelson's 10 principles, okay? You guys should know this. This is just good design, all right? Now, I want to get into a conversation specifically about blogs. And for the record, I've only been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, and it's from my own usability experiences. You might have other ones, and that's fine, right? But this is what I saw. No clear strategy. Credibility is a huge issue. Headlines, there's nothing worse than a poorly written headline. Navigation, again, that matches one of Nielsen's. Content, writing ineffective content. The frequency of your updates, that is critical. In fact, AJ had a very long diatribe at dinner last night in front of about 12 people saying you've got to publish on a regular basis. Wonderful conversation, and totally agree with you. I have it here, dude. I'm right there with you, brother.
I made people cry.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
It just made them cry.
They had
You
to
made
pass
them
that
cry.
process.
Yep. Burying information. That's also another thing that really pisses me off. You have good content, but you only show it once, right? So you bury the information. Bad forms, I mentioned that before. I think bad forms. Jay had a visual. Just to give you guys a visual, Jay wanted me to change the slides here in a bit to where there was a Kung Fu master, and then the next slide said bad form, and it's Chris Farley. I should have done that. I really should have done that. Search. We're going to have an interesting conversation about search, and then being responsive or unresponsive online. Those are the top 10, at least for me, at this point in time. Subject to change based on our Q&A. Love this cartoon. Take a look at it. I had my own blog for a while, but decided to go back to pointless and such. Right. Or howling in some cases. No clear blog strategy, right? That gets back to the 5 planes. So that's your first step, right? So what a lot of people will do is they want to have a blog. Cool. Really easy to set one up. Tony mentioned that earlier, right? Easy to set one up. But what is the purpose? What's the primary purpose of your blog? And that's rule number 1 in usability. What's the primary purpose of this function, of this page, of this product, of this blog? Rule number 1, what's the primary purpose? Because if you don't have a primary purpose, you have competing purposes, so nobody knows what you're doing. Who has seen the 25 basic styles of blogging? This is a wonderful slideshow on SlideShare. I'll go over a couple of them with you. There's different styles for blogging. So you can do insight blogging where you just talk about maybe a particular topic that is of key interest to you. So for me, it would be we're better together, big design, usability stuff, right? Ambition blogging. So maybe somebody's trying to lose weight or control their diabetes or something like that. That's an ambition blog. Life blogging. There's a lot of people that will just write about everything, you know, on their blog, and you know it's the Kim Kardashian style of blog, if you will. Brand blogging. Actually, there's some really cool brand blogs. I like the Coca-Cola blog. If you haven't checked the Facebook timeline for Coca-Cola, that is kick-ass. If you really want to see a better one, check out the U.S. Army on Facebook. They show all the different battles that the Army has been in, every war. It is awesome. Detractor blogging, hatred about something, right? I hate whatever, or I love whatever. That's the other one. Link blogging is where you capture a series of links to try to be a resource. Okay, a really good example of that would be Technorati or Smashing Magazine. 101 top WordPress themes for brands. And everyone would go there and check it out, right?
Hey Brian, what's frequency calling for? Do you know?
Yeah, that's how frequently you should update. So if you're going to run that type of a blog, you need to be updating it that frequently. And it's by days, not by hour. An evangelist blog, that's where you're supporting some type of a social cause, right? So evangelism. A feature blog, so you have an ongoing feature to explore similar ideas. Jay Shu has an ongoing feature on the Big Design site. His feature blog is he interviews authors of books. He also wants to do another blog called the Jay Shu App Review. So his feature blog will be reviewing a different app. So this is again talking about strategy. What's your strategy? The cool thing is that you can do this. Remember I told you about Luke Wroblewski? This is him. LukeW.com is the blog that he runs. He wants to be considered an expert, and by God he is. This is a kick-ass blog. That's his book, Web Form Design. It's a couple of years old. It's fantastic. Buy that book and read it. Okay, here's what Luke does in terms of those strategies I was just mentioning. He has an insight blog where he talks about the things that interest him. Mobile first design and web forms. Those are the things that interest him. When you look a little bit more at his blog, it's also a video blog. He goes to his presentations, he has PDFs and video links to his content. He wants to show that he's an expert. By God, he has videos to prove it. It's also a link blog. He has this thing called Data Mondays. Data Mondays, all he's doing is he has a Google search that he saves, pulling down data that interests him on web forms and mobile first. Then he publishes it, and then he just has a link to the source. This has driven so much traffic for him, it has brought his site down before. And he needs to use Derek Schaefer so he'll keep that site up. But that is a very great resource for people. He also does event blogging. He's speaking at all of these different conferences. He tells what he's learned at these different conferences. So you can see he has this strategy to where he wants to be seen as an expert, and he is. He's written books about it. His blogging strategy, though, is it's an event blog, it's a video blog, it's a list blog, right? It's all of those things. Develop a strategy. That is, I think, the first thing that you need to do with your blog. Luke is an expert, 3 books. He has Data Mondays, probably a Google search. That becomes a resource, video blogger, and it's a mixture of styles. That's the cool thing about it, okay? You guys can do this too. All right. Love this cartoon too.
I got a question real fast. You know, on the frequency list on that one slide,
Yep.
is that like 5 days a week or once every 5 days, for instance?
They're saying 5 days a week.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll send you the resource for that. This is our second issue from usability guidelines. Lack of credibility, right? Now, there's a couple of different types of credibility. This comes from Stanford University. They have a group of researchers that just research web credibility. You have presumed credibility. You've heard of this person or brand. Reputed credibility. Somebody that you trust has said, this is a good guy, right? And at this lunch, or at this dinner the other night, AJ and I, how many people do we know in that room?
Handful.
Right. I knew you, you knew me, and you knew Jay. So Jay vouched for AJ and myself. So we had reputed credibility at the dinner. So thank you for that, Jay. I appreciate that. Surface credibility. You like how something looks upon a casual inspection, right? So it's almost like you're checking out a guy or a girl that you like. I like that. That looks good. Earned credibility. You've probably done work with them before. Someone has earned it. Okay, which one of those 4 is the most powerful? Earned. Earned, right? All right, which one do you think people judge you by the most? Surface, yeah, absolutely. Surface credibility. All right, I love these guys. I've done work with these guys. This is a market research firm. Their homepage is a cartoon. You have got to be fucking kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. You want to establish credibility by animating yourself? You have got to be kidding me. You know what's worse than that? Their blog. All right? Their blog, it is a time-based blog. There are no pictures of the individuals. None whatsoever. There is no name on this. It just says the name of the brand or the company. It's just this nebulous group of people maybe sending out information to you. Credibility gives you power. That's what you need to know. Credibility gives you power. You can change someone's attitude to think, positively about you or negatively, based solely on credibility. They can embrace your point of view if your site is credible. You can change their behavior. They will buy your stuff if you are credible, if they trust you, okay? And it comes down to really a couple of things based on the Stanford University: trustworthiness and expertise. Those two things equal credibility. Are you trustworthy? And there are things you can do there. Are you a perceived expert? Then you have credibility. However, if you have a lack of trustworthiness or a lack of expertise, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the other categories, because they will not think you're credible. Lack of trustworthiness, but you're an expert, impacts your credibility. You're considered trustworthy, but maybe they don't trust your expertise. Still not credible. All right? Here's some really simple ways to add credibility on your blog. Make your site look professional. This is surface credibility. One of the things that you can do is get a really good theme that you like, and then maybe you have a designer work with you to make it look even more professional. Very simple thing to do. Make it easy to verify the accuracy of your information. So include sources with links. We saw Luke was doing that on his. He actually says, go here, right? Show there's a person behind the site. Have a picture of the author, right? Real simple thing to do. Have a name for every blog article, not admin, for God's sakes. That's awful, right? Highlight your expertise, your credentials, and your organizations, things that you belong to, right? If you're an expert, by God, act like one and market yourself as an expert. If you can do that, that adds to credibility. Make it easy to contact you. I mentioned that before. Have contact information such as email and phone number. If you don't, you're not being helpful and you're not being genuine, right? If I can't contact you, you're not genuine. That impacts your credibility. Keep your content fresh. I'll show you a slide here in a few minutes of some not so fresh content from a highly respected person. It's greatly impacting your credibility to this day. Restrain from market ease, right? You know what that is. That's where you're trying to push your product really hard, and when you do that, some people will actually feel violated by that market speak, right? You're not genuine when you're heavily pushing your marketing. Avoid errors of any kind. Even simple spelling errors impact your brand, your credibility. Stanford University said that the number one thing that you can do is to do copywriting to improve your credibility. That's the number one thing. Just make sure that you don't have errors of spelling, sentences without periods, broken links, stuff like that. Use simple, plain language that people can understand. The average grade level for reading is under a 6th grade reading level, right? You have to really speak plain language. That's the hardest thing you're going to do when you write. Another way to add credibility is to use testimonials and case studies, right? That's pretty easy to get. Just find some people that are respected in the industry to say nice things about you. Easy to do, right? That adds credibility. Check out these headlines. These really are bad. Stud tires out. Love that one. Panda mating falls. Veterinarian takes over. Soviet Virgin lands short of goal again. Farmer Bill dies in house. Poorly written headlines, right? Why are headlines important, though? Why are headlines important?
Jay Leno.
Jay Leno, yeah. That's actually pretty good.
Like big, I guess headlines are like
So here's an online headline, Titanic, or an offline, Titanic sinks, right? Here's the online version of it, right? Look at all of the context that you get with the printed word that you don't necessarily get here, online. That's why your headlines are critical to you. If you don't have a good headline, you're dead. You are dead online. Okay, so your online headline, it's displayed out of context. It's part of a series of other stuff, other competing stuff. There's no background material, no context. The text is the same size. Notice the headline, Titanic sinks. It's real big. It's all caps and stuff like that. Here it all looks the same. If you use all caps online, though, people are pissed off because you're yelling at them. Right? Offline headlines, completely different. There's usually photos, decks, and articles. It's displayed with all of this other content. There's more information from the start. You've probably purchased this item too, so you already have a vested interest in it. Usually the headline gets the biggest font also. Everything was of equal weight before. And really, most of your headlines are in all caps. That's so that you'll pay attention to it. Here's what I want you to do with your headlines. As a general rule, 40 to 60 characters per headline. That's it. Okay. That also comes from Stanford. That is much less than Twitter. Treat each headline as a writing assignment. It is not enough for you to write an article for your blog. That headline is probably the most critical information in your blog post. Treat each headline as its own writing assignment. It should be able to convey the gist of your story in the headline. Right? The ones that I showed at the beginning that were really kind of funny, what do y'all think happened there? Why are they so bad? They could be misinterpreted. What's that, Susan? Did you say something? Nope, nope, okay. Oh, no, don't call on me. Guidelines for headlines. It should be a short abstract of your article. The ones that were at the beginning weren't that. They were trying to be funny. No teasers to entice people. They don't click teasers. They don't care. Make it plain language. Don't be cute or clever with puns. You actually will insult people. Or they'll laugh at you and then you lack credibility. So they don't click. Here's an interesting thing. Skip leading words like a or an. Notice Titanic sinks. It wasn't the Titanic sinks. Get straight to the point. Make the first word an information carrying one. Titanic sinks. Design like Da Vinci. Very simple. Don't use the same verbs each time. You need to differentiate. The reason for that is as you start to Google and you get some SEO juice, if you're using the same words, your site looks the same. Your headlines, to me, are critical. Treat it as a separate writing assignment. One navigation scheme. Okay, this is a problem I have with a lot of blogs. What is the default navigation scheme for most blogs? What?
Menu
Tabs?
bar.
Okay. What else?
Menu bar.
Menu bar. Time. Most of them are time-based. Okay. You can add tabs, which is actually the next one as you start to put pages, but you can have no tabs and it's all just time-based, right? And that's actually, from an information architecture standpoint, from a usability standpoint, the worst way to do navigation, time-based. The reason is people aren't on your blog every day. The majority of people are on another site. They spend more time on another site. These guys, love these guys. I have such respect for them. I hate their blog. Time-based blog, that's it. The lady over here, no tabs on this, none. Right? It's this blog, you go here, and then you're just caught in a time machine, right? Here's a better use. They have pages, categories, tags. These are things you probably should be doing, right? You have to do this. And you really need to think, really think about your pages and your categories and your tags, because that's how people get around in your system. That might be your most critical design decision once you pick a theme. What is the structure? Structure is level 3 within the planes that we talked about. Pages separate your contact. Categories group similar types of information together. Tags group related content together, which might be on a separate page. This is UX Booth. I love how they have the categories right here. Once I drill into a category, I can find a tag, and it might be in multiple channels. Guidelines for navigation. Timelines are only one method to organize your data. Provide more than one scheme for navigation. Pages, categories, and tags are your lifeline. Once you get into your system, this is how people can move around. This gives users control and freedom to find your information. 10 to 20 categories is usually enough. Highlight each category's most recent articles and the most popular ones. I'll get to that in a moment when I talk about burying information. Who's read this book, Letting Go of the Words? Wonderful book. This is another one you should probably get. One of the things that you do, it's pretty easy to open a blog, right? It's another thing to maintain it. It's another thing to write effective content. This book will tell you how to write effective web content. Okay. Jenny Reddish is the person who wrote the book. She's considered the grandmother of usability. Wonderful, wonderful, nice lady, high credibility. Whoops. This is how people actually, quote unquote, read. Right? Okay, this is known as the F pattern. They go across the top, they go down the side, the left side, and they kind of go to the middle. The most pronounced F pattern is actually the middle one. It actually makes an F. And then you see kind of the same thing going on Google, right? Our eyes now scan information. We don't really read.
Hey Brian, wait, go back. So the orange obviously are higher concentrations.
Right.
How does that fall out in time? So you can get, do they start at the top and go down?
They start, they usually do this, Jay. Good question. You can't really see it here. They read the tabs, then they go straight down looking at key content, and then they go across whatever interests them. On Google, you can see it's the headlines. And again, headlines treated as a separate writing assignment. That's why. That's how they read and scan. Yes, sir?
There's a laser.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I don't want to shoot someone's eye out. This is a heat map, so their gaze points are much longer here. As it starts to get to orange to yellow, less time is spent there. Implications, though, of the F reading pattern or scanning pattern. Customers will not read your text thoroughly. You write this wonderful stuff, they may not read it. Okay? They don't really read word by word on the web. That's key. When they pick up a book, they do. They might lose interest after the first chapter, but they usually grind through the first chapter. Use the inverted pyramid style of writing. Your key point is the first sentence of your article. Your key point's the first sentence, not the last, the first, because you have to gain their interest and maintain it. Beautiful sound effects. First two paragraphs must state the most important information. Again, I talked about using information carrying words before. This is critical though, I think number 6. Most people will scan the first 2 or 3 words in any line. That's that F, that vertical. Have your kick-ass words there. That's what you do. Have your kick-ass words there. Then you generate their interest, you maintain it, and then maybe they read a sentence or 2. Right? They look for what's called the scent of information, meaning this is really cool, here's a link, and then they'll go somewhere else. Again, people spend more time on other sites than yours. Okay? Now, if that link is to another article on your site, awesome. Okay, that's awesome. That's called escalation of commitment. They've read this, they're interested, boom. They're still interested, boom. Then they buy something. Escalation of commitment. More sound effects, awesome. People spend more time on another person's site. Jared Spool. Great guy. Keynoted our conference the last 3 years. He invited himself back 2 of those years. Said, come on down. Great guy. So use clear, simple language. We won the award versus the award was won by us. Right? That sounds a little better anyway. Limit each paragraph to one idea. It's easier to scan. You get a general sense of what's coming also. Move to the next idea quickly, or the next paragraph. Front load your content. That's key. Get to the point. Use descriptive subheadings. That chunks the information. What will happen, remember the pattern that we saw in Google where they read the headlines? They'll read your subheadings. And they may just scan to the subheading they're interested in and go from there. And that's fine. You're getting them what they want. Use font differences sparingly. So bold, italics, underline, all of that. It's actually harder to read when you do that. So try to keep it to one easy reading font. When you use a bunch of font differences or you show a bunch of stuff, it also decreases your credibility. Right? Know that too. Don't use descriptive links like click here. That is extremely rude to people, especially if they are blind or low vision. A screen reader is usually what they use, and it says click here, click here. Click here for what? It's better to just use alt text there. It's more descriptive. And if they get the scent of information, they move on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I understand that this is not a WordPress tutorial, but is there a way to counteract, because I understand what you're saying about how it increases our credibility with our target audience when we use too many fancy italics and bold words, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But since Google actually favors that and shows favoritism with their SEO and SEM to sites that do that, is there a way that we would be able to hide that?
It's not a really big deal from an SEO perspective.
Yeah.
From an SEO perspective, it's really not a big deal.
I'll get it.
Boldface has like a tiny, I've talked with people, it has a tiny little bit of value, but not really.
So Cameron's point, if you guys couldn't hear it, was she understands how the different fonts, from a usability perspective, make it harder for a person to read. However, from an SEO perspective, you might get a little bit of juice from Google. Mason's point is not that much. And my point is, it doesn't fucking matter. SEO versus usability, I'll get to in a moment. Okay? I love the SEO guys. I do. Love them. Love them. But when you talk SEO and usability, you're having two different conversations. Okay? SEO is about finding your page. Usability is about keeping them there. That's a different conversation. You have different goals in those conversations. Love the SEO guys. We've got to have them done. Use lists for scannability. It's less intimidating. You chunk the information. People will go right to the dots. Boom, 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 boom. The lists are 3 or 4 words usually. Maybe 5 or 6. But boy, you can get the information quick. You can digest it. Very succinct. Left aligning text. It's easier to read. Block quotes can add credibility, but they decrease the reading speed. So if you're going to have a block quote, make it a kick-ass one. Okay? That block quote had better be from someone that has a lot of credibility, because wow, you're putting on the brakes when it comes to reading. That's cool though if your purpose is to add to your credibility. That's why it's important. All right, here's an interesting thing. Again, letting go of the words. There was a study that was done where they took off 50% of the words. It increased understanding by twice as much. That's why you let go of the words. Don't write what someone doesn't need. Okay? Color and text really affect people's reading speed. People prefer high contrast, black on white. You need at least a 90% difference between background and foreground. I really could have showed you some poor examples. So when you pick out your theme, think about this, because it impacts people's reading speed, it impacts your credibility, it impacts your ability to maybe make a sell. Okay? Attention attracting font characteristics. Yeah, we can read all this stuff, but who cares? It kind of looks cheap. 9% of men are colorblind. Okay, as you age, your cornea yellows and hardens. The blues aren't as blue as you get older. The greens aren't as green. The greens kind of look blue, actually. This is a biological fact. We cannot get around it. That's why high contrast is important. Okay. Jay Shu, this slide was for you. Okay. Jay, what is this of?
A codex.
This is the Codex Atlanticus. This is what Leonardo da Vinci stored all of his military drawings in. Jay actually mocked up this for me, so I had to include it in here. Infrequent or irregular updates. That is number 6. This is the blog of a well-known person, and oh my God, I hope she's not watching this. Her last post is from February 1st of this year. The one right below it is from October the year before. She has an Eventbrite widget, which is from February 5th. Okay, I grabbed this last night. For some reason, she doesn't update nearly as frequently as she could. This is a person that has written 53 books. Highly respected in the industry. Highly respected. And a beautiful person.
She's too busy writing books, dude.
She hasn't written one in 5 years.
Oh, really?
But she has a blog.
See, I was trying to help.
She doesn't update. Now, without new content, this is what happens. Without fresh content, you risk losing your fans, and your fans are your best customers. Right? Because your stuff's old. Okay? So there's a term that I like to use from usability when I talk about content. It's called ROT. Redundant, outdated, and trivial content. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. But keep it fresh. Okay? If you chunk it out, you have a series of articles. Right? Each one of those big long paragraphs is a separate blog post that you can link back to. You chunk the information, you make it easier to scan, easier to read. You satisfy all your loyal customers too. Get this plugin. You don't have it. It's an editorial calendar. Right? It's awesome. The reason why it's awesome is you can plan your content in months in advance. If you have universal content that isn't time-based, you can move it out. And so that if something really great happens to you, like 165,000 views on SlideShare, you're kidding me. Oh yeah, I'm going to front load that. I'm going to hit that now while it's hot, and I'll push out this other content. Right? Strike while the iron is hot. Okay? I would also suggest that you write some universal content. You pad your editorial calendar a little bit. That's pretty important. That gives you fresh content. As AJ said in his diatribe where people were crying last night, publish on a regular interval. Right? That's key because it keeps people coming back. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is your content's expiring. So, Content Scheduler. Cool thing about this plugin is it provides notification when something's expiring. If you have a group of writers and their content's expiring, this thing sends them an email. Hey buddy, write some new stuff. Keeps your content fresh. Right? These are plugins that you just need to use. Do you know when to publish? Okay? You see the dips in this? That's Saturday. Right? So I'm speaking here Saturday. It's awesome. I don't have to publish content today. No one's really reading it. But on Mondays and Tuesdays, I better have something posted on Sunday or Monday morning because that's when people view the Big D site during non-conference time. We notice that it starts to dip on Friday. So my regular intervals usually are Monday and Thursday for content. All right, classic hits are buried. This one pisses me off too. I have to work to get to the content, good content. Let's say you write something that's popular, right? For us, this is the Big D site. We average about 500 views a day. That's about it. It's not much. That's during non-conference time. But we have 3 posts with over 50,000 views that have nothing to do with the conference. Okay, one is actually about World War II design. Ben Judy is the guy that wrote it. Fantastic article. He presented that at Big Design last year. That's all everybody was talking about on Friday was his talk. And I told him he needed to submit it at South by Southwest. They didn't accept it. Shame on them. That was a good talk. It's a good post. We get about 25,000 views during the conference time, right? That's when people are visiting the site daily. Okay. So just add a link of popular articles, right? And so Ben's is 5 innovations for World War II. My 5 sketching secrets of Leonardo da Vinci, I wrote it 4 years ago. Okay, wrote it 4 years ago.
I think I noticed you've got 6 and 5 as numeric, and then 5 innovations spelled out. So.
Yeah, that's probably a mistake on Ben's part. I'm glad you brought
But
that
I
up.
wouldn't have noticed it if you hadn't mentioned that earlier.
Really important, though, that Mitch brought that up, okay? When you write content, you write differently on the web. Jenny Reddish says this in her book. Write out numbers, okay? Not 5, F-I-V-E, the number 5. People, for some reason, their eyes go to numbers. If it's a big number like 165,000, okay, they can still read that. If it's 165 million, that's too many zeros. 165, then million. Okay, but people will read that. He keyed right in on those.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's making me miss the World
War II, right.
It makes me miss it.
But if I said 5, that'd be better. Mason, yeah,
It
go
also
ahead.
goes in hugely with search. People don't like to type out words when there's a number option. So.
Right, so people don't like to type out the word when it's a number option, is what Mason said. Man, I don't know if I would change it because he gets so much SEO juju from this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to change it. If you type in World War II innovations, you're number 2. Okay, above Discovery Channel.
Might be number 1 though.
Show related articles. Zamanta's a plugin that shows related content, right? So that's great. Use that plugin. Use embedded content. So here's a link to SoundCloud from my Design Like Da Vinci presentation, but I also have links to Wikipedia for The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa, right? Embedded videos, embedded links, embedded audio, all that's good.
You got to tell your story at South by Southwest when the guy came in the room. When the guy came in and looked up and you go,
Oh, yeah. I'll go back. Guy came in to South by Southwest about 10 minutes before the talk, takes a picture of this, and he posts it on Twitter, and I happen to have my phone, and he goes, "This is going to be kick-ass." I'm like, God, I hope so. So yeah, the pressure was on, man. When it was guys, it was the most bizarre thing. I mean, I'm in Hall B, and then I'm not even notified by these guys, and I'm in Hall A. I check it out, and it's like, holy shit, this is a big room, 1,500 people. The next day, that's where Google Goggles was. Crazy. It was absolutely insane. Weird. Guidelines for past hits. Don't keep them in the archive. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your best hits should be on the home page. Your best hits should be on every page. Yes, ma'am.
If you're talking about keeping things fresh and people are posting blogs that have the date,
Right.
do you recommend leaving dates off?
No. Then they don't know how fresh it is.
Okay.
Then you're not genuine. That
So I've
impacts your
read
credibility.
pros and cons both.
It impacts your credibility, right? Fresh content.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should have the date on there so they'll know it's fresh.
Okay.
Okay. Revisit past hits with a fresh perspective. So Ben did his World War II article, and I told him, I had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago, and I go, that's cool. Now I want 5 innovations from the Cold War. Okay, and then we'll relate back to, the other innovations. Cool, right? Embed links, video and audio into the newer articles. So one of the things I could have done, or actually I did do this. I posted the Design Like Da Vinci slideshow, right? Put that out there, people could do it. 2 days later, the audio becomes available. So what I do? Hey guys, here's the audio. Just post the audio. Anyway, the content remains fresh. Some people had actually seen the PowerPoint slide, but now with the audio, they could watch it and maybe even learn a little more. They said, oh, this looks great, Brian, this looks great. I wish I could have been there. So I follow up with, you can listen to it now. Right? So what ends up happening is there's probably people double dipping now on PowerPoint, which is fine. Use a popular article list on the home page. Have it maybe in a global nav area. Maybe your right gutter that's global nav. That way it's on every page. Embed related links using a plugin like Zamanta. We do that. Don't assume that people visit every day, and that's why you're doing this. Compile a list of past articles, right? So one of the things I could do on the Big Design site is Usability 101 and have a list of articles that we've written, right? You can do that too. It's a real simple thing. That's called link blogging. Remember the 25 different ways to blog? That's a linked blog to your own stuff. Awesome. Just do that. What's wrong with this form? This form sucks. I hate this. What's wrong with it? I got it in red. Tell me why it sucks.
Can't read it.
Can't read it. Great. It says...
Can't read much on that screen.
Right. Remember me. That's what it says. Why does that suck?
I wanted to.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. You have to click the checkbox, but the way the form is, username, password, button. And when you're tabbing, it's username, password, button. Then checkbox. They'll never remember you that way. Good Lord, that's bad form. It's rude. Make it easy to use. You guys knew the fix, right? She goes right away, boom, it's this. Fix it. This is a pretty good tool, right? Gravity forms. Awesome. Here's the problem. You've got a good tool. Do you know how to use it? Right? This is a good tool. You need to know how to use it. Most people don't know how to build good forms. Right? This is an interesting story. It may be fixed now. Simple form, right? You guys have seen this? So-and-so's email. I can include a personal note, send invitations. Right? It used to be that my optional field was required. You have got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. I'm thinking something's wrong with the email that I typed in. It has nothing to do with that. My optional field, and it says optional even there. That's bad form design. Do you know how many other links and contacts I could have in my network if this thing was fixed? What is the primary purpose of LinkedIn? This! This is the primary purpose of LinkedIn. This sucks. This is awesome. Guess what? I can put anything in the postal code, anything in the phone number. Why are you showing me that shit? Why? Nothing will piss off users more than bad forms. 10 simple rules for forms. I can read them all. I'm just going to read a couple. Use a simple vertical layout. It's easy to read. Vertically align the labels. Have the labels above the data entry fields. That's important for if you end up going into a foreign country, some of those words become 26 letters. So from an internationalization perspective, you save yourself the trouble of having to reformat your form. Emphasize section headings. Ask only for required information that's required. Don't make the LinkedIn mistake. Lord. I'll also say one of the things that you should do is read Luke W.'s book, Web Form Design. He goes over all of this in great detail with a lot of graphics. Again, that's one of the books I think you should read. Gravity Forms is a wonderful tool. We use it all the time. We're always having to check our forms to make sure that we do them right. Yes, ma'am?
Are you familiar with any plugin that's available that would allow printable forms?
Am I aware of any plugins available that allow for printed forms? Printable forms? No. Is anybody else?
PDF.
For WordPress?
For WordPress. PDF, yeah.
There's an extension for Gravity Forms.
There's an extension for Gravity Forms. Get with Mason. Yes, ma'am?
Is there a suggested preferred length of a blog post? Is there some flexibility on that? I'm hearing different.
Is there a suggested length?
How long does it stay on the page? So I mean, I've heard 300 words, I've heard more, I've heard less.
I don't know. That is a fantastic question. That's a fantastic question. For headlines, it's really that 40 to 60 length is good enough. 40 to 60 characters. That includes spaces. That includes spaces, so count those. I'm not sure on content. I'll do some research though and see if I can get back. That's a good question. Read Luke W.'s book, Web Form Design. That's going to help you. Bad or ineffective search. Love this cartoon. This is where we'll get into the conversation about SEO and usability. Okay. This is the slide that will give all of you hope. Okay? And it will give you hope. Jay and Tony and I were right up here and we were talking. This is the slide I was referring to, Tony. Okay? Of the top 100,000 sites, this is from, it might have been from Stanford, I'll have to pull it out, but the number 20,000, it has a great, it's the #1 visited site of its kind, in its category. It's an aggregator site. It pulls news from other sources. A lot of people go there. This bad boy right here on the bottom only has 2 million page views a year. Okay? But it's number 5 in its category. Your niche site can actually have a lot of pull on the internet. That's the great equalizer when it comes to blogging. This is the great equalizer, right? Tony, you had said micro content, almost from your neighborhood, actually, right? And I think that's true, right? So let's say that you're into maybe planning Caribbean honeymoons that involve cruise ships, right?
I'm going Carnival.
Let me tell you another story, okay? I may get into a little TMI. I hope I don't get into too much trouble, but I've already been cussing and everything, so. There's a site that's a blog. It's a travel site. It's called Shoes Only Travel. What do y'all think they do?
And I have nothing.
Walking tours now. Shoes,
Christopher got it.
nude vacations and hedonism. I got my eye on you. That is absolutely correct. They bank $10 million a year in travel sales. They have high repeat customers. They really do. Okay. Micro niche content. Exactly what Tony was saying up here. Right? That's how you can compete with the big boys. This is the slide that gives you hope. SEO and usability. I said we'd get to that conversation. SEO is about attracting people to your site. That's what happens before they click. Or it should be happening before they click. Extremely important. You have to attract customers. Critical to do that. Usability is about the behavior of the customer when they arrive. Okay, what do they do? What makes them click? What makes them stay? What makes them buy? That's usability. Cameron, that's the difference, at least in my opinion. Sir?
What's the best thing that you can do from a usability standpoint without changing design so much?
What's the best thing you can do from a usability standpoint without changing design too much? The number one thing that you can do is navigation. Okay? You don't necessarily have to change the visual design. Okay? You're going down a couple of layers into structure, which is the third plane. But you can maybe add pages, create some categories, so that it makes it easier once people get into your page to move around. Navigation gives people give users control and freedom to move around in your site. That's the best thing you can do. It's usually the number one problem most sites have. It's the number one thing on Nielsen's list also, and it's there for a reason. This is why search is important. This is why SEO is important. If your site is difficult to use, customers leave. If they get lost in your site, they leave. If they can't find your product, they can't buy it, so they leave. SEO and usability is a 1-2 punch. It is. About 60% of people are search dominant. Right? This is what Jay and Tony and I were talking about. And I think you're talking with Robert also. And that's people go to YouTube search, they search for the video they want, and they go. Right? They don't look at the categories. When they go to Netflix, what do? They go to the search, and then they might go to the categories after that. Okay? There is a term that is called the Google bias. Okay? This is a new term. What it is that your short-term memory is now blown because you can just Google it. Right? 972-245-3842 was my mom's number for 30 years. Now it's on speed dial. Right?
And anybody who teaches students that are 18 to 22 knows that they can't memorize things.
Right. You know, I asked my son Sean, who's 13, when did Columbus discover America? Doesn't know. I'll Google it. But then he gets on it, Googles it. I go, come on. In 1492, Columbus. Come on. But that's the thing, though. Short-term memory is shot now because of technology. It's called the Google effect. Love this one. Check out this cartoon. Let's just go to Fargo. Right? No results for, misspelled Honolulu, misspelled again, misspelled Hawaii. Let's go Fargo. Right? Bad search greatly impacts your credibility. No search on your site only slightly impacts it. Bad search ends up losing you a lot of customers. They're probably going to Fargo. No search, you lose less. They actually might find the stuff just through your own navigation. Sir?
Some people say the default search in WordPress is not so great. Do you have any recommendations? Have you looked into that?
I'm going to agree with that, at least for the Big Design site. I turned it on for a little bit. It was really bad. So I opted to have no search on the site. And I'm getting my ass handed to me by people saying, when are you going to get search? When are you going to search? I got to figure that out.
We'll dig up some plugins.
Awesome.
Is there a Libya plugin?
Google Search API on the WordPress. Awesome.
Is there a Libya plugin for WordPress?
I don't know.
Because I've used Libya and it seems to help people a lot.
Right. I want to make a difference between search engine optimization, Google, Bing, Yahoo. Maybe that's the same. Now, and site search. When you get on your site, people are searching. That's different, okay? People use site search when your navigation fails. It is a failure in your navigation. Okay? If it's readily apparent what to do when you land on this page, if there's no search, they click the category and move to what they want. You stand a good chance of retaining a customer with good navigation. Site search is an opt-out. All-in-one SEO, pretty good plugin. We've used it. We get a lot of juju. from yeah, especially like Ben Judy's World War II article, Design Like Da Vinci. Great plugin. This is a book from Lou Rosenfeld about site search. Fantastic book. It's only about 6 months old, but some real simple things you can do for search on your site. Make it a box, buttons on the right. It's always on the top right of the page. It's global. You kind of all know that, right? The box is initially empty. The label is search, not go, not find, not whatever it is. It's just search. Come on. It searches your entire site. It does not search the internet. Why?
You want to keep people on your site.
Bingo. You want to keep people on your site. Okay, so this Google plugin, I don't want it to search the internet. I want to search my site.
It does look like site search.
Okay, awesome. Read the book by Lou. Okay, number 10. Unresponsive design is being used. Okay, responsive design is you have a WordPress site, you can see it fine on a PC, you can see it fine on your tablet, you can see it just fine on your phone. Okay, that's responsive design. We live in a post-PC era. This was one of the last predictions by Steve Jobs. In 2012, PC sales were down from the previous year. It is the first time in over a decade that that's happened. Tablet sales are going to exceed 100 million this year. That's what people are buying instead of the PCs. On Mashable, 50% of their traffic comes from their mobile site. Okay, not the web site. 60% of people read news online now, mostly through a mobile device. That's how they consume it. Mashable called 2013 this year the year of responsive design. Your site had better be responsive if you want to compete, because that's how people consume the information. In simple terms, what responsive design is, it uses media queries to say, is this a laptop? Is this a tablet? Is this a mobile device? Then it figures out what the resolution is and it renders it so that that person can read it. Now, the cool thing is that here's a site called Food Sense, and you can see it's responsive. The content slightly changes. The images are either bigger or smaller. Look at all of these WordPress themes. This is a handful of them that are responsive. Okay, so if you have a site that isn't responsive, you got plenty of themes that you can use to make it responsive. And again, this is how people are reading now on their mobile devices and tablets. Critical. And that's it, guys. That's all I have.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this episode session. Make sure and check back for future video sessions from the Dallas-Fort Worth Meetup group, okay? As well as other sessions that I do on the other parts of Conference Showcase. Now, before I go, I want to share something with you. I've started an e-magazine for the iPad, and I really have to say it's doing great, surprisingly great. Now, I have no background in publishing at all, but I found it a snap. You can almost say it was foolproof. But if you've ever thought about publishing an e-magazine, you may want to check out Magcast, which is a service I use to create my magazine. Like I said, it was easy and foolproof. But you can see it for yourself at magcast.fastpitch.tv. And that's all for today. So until the next episode, this is your host, Gary Leland, saying goodbye and thanks for watching.